Why are you in my office at midnight? The single dad janitor replied, Ma'am. You're not safe here. Midnight in the towering glass building of Astrian Industries wasn't peaceful the way movies showed it. No, midnight here hummed with electricity, flickering lights, and the soft echo of someone working late. On the 42nd floor, CEO Elena Navarro, known everywhere as the Ice Queen, typed furiously on her laptop, trying to finish a report that had to be ready by morning. Her dark office was quiet, too quiet. Outside the glass walls, the city glowed like a tired galaxy. Elena rubbed her eyes. She had dismissed her security team 2 hours ago, telling them she would be fine. But she wasn't. Not tonight. Part 1. A strange sound. A faint click echoed from the hallway. Elena froze. She wasn't expecting anyone. No meetings. No deliveries. No staff. Then. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Getting closer. Elena's hand moved to her phone, but before she could dial, the door creaked open. A figure stepped inside. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Wearing a gray uniform. Holding a mop. Elena exhaled sharply. The janitor. But something was off. He never came to this floor at midnight. The man blinked, startled to see her. Ma'am, he whispered. Why are you in my office at midnight? She demanded. The janitor swallowed hard, glanced over his shoulder, then stepped in and quietly shut the door. His voice was low, urgent. Ma'am, you're not safe here. Part 2. The single dad. The janitor's name was Daniel Hale, but most people just called him Dan. He was 34, clean-shaven, hard-working, and tired from juggling 2 jobs while raising his 8-year-old daughter, Lila. He wasn't the type to panic. Which made Elena uneasy. She stood. Explain. Now. Dan took a breath. There's someone else in the building. Security does hourly patrols, she replied stiffly. Dan shook his head. Not tonight. I heard one of the guards arguing with someone on the loading dock. A man forced his way in. Had tools. Not cleaning tools, break-in tools. Elena stared at him. A burglar. Dan's jaw tightened. No. He asked for you by name. The air turned icy. Part 3. Lockdown. Before Elena could speak, the hallway lights flickered once, twice, then went out. A tiny emergency bulb glowed red outside her office. Dan immediately locked the office door from the inside. Sit down, ma'am. Away from the glass. Elena didn't argue. She suddenly realized she had no idea how dangerous the situation was. Do you know who he is? She whispered. Dan hesitated. I think so. He ran a hand through his hair and sighed. Last year my daughter got sick. I needed money for her surgery. Fast. I took a night job at a warehouse. Wrong place, wrong time. I overheard a group planning a major theft. I reported it. He swallowed. One of the men went to prison. The same man I just saw downstairs. Elena's eyes widened. He's here for revenge. Dan nodded slowly. And since you're the only person in the building with high security access, he might be planning something bigger than hurting me. He could use you. Elena felt her heartbeat in her ears. For the first time, the Ice Queen didn't know what to do. But Dan did. He moved to the windows, shut the blinds, then pulled out his phone. No signal. He cut the network. Part 4. Hiding in the shadows. They heard footsteps. Not Dan's soft steps. Not the security guard's heavy boots. These were slow. Careful. Searching. The door handle jiggled. Elena's breath hitched. Dan stepped in front of her, eyes sharp. The handle jiggled again, then stopped. Silence. Elena whispered, "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Dan answered quietly. "I have a daughter waiting at home. If someone was trying to hurt her, I'd pray someone helped." His voice softened. "Everyone deserves to be safe, ma'am. Even CEOs who pretend they don't need anyone." Elena looked down. No one had spoken to her like that in years. Part 5 Escape Plan. Dan peeked through a tiny crack in the blinds. The intruder stood in the hallway, flashlight in one hand, crowbar in the other. Dan whispered, "He's checking each office. 2 minutes, maybe less, until he comes here." Elena's hands trembled. Dan's mind raced. There's one way out. A maintenance shaft at the back of the floor. Elena blinked. "A what?" "It leads to the stairwell. From there, we can reach the parking lot." She hesitated. "Dan, will you be able to keep up? You have an injured leg, don't you?" He smirked slightly. "I limp. I don't quit." Part 6 The Chase. Dan unlocked the back office door. They crept through empty conference rooms and dark corridors. Suddenly, bang! The intruder kicked Elena's office door open. His roar echoed across the floor. "Daniel! Come out!" Dan grabbed Elena's wrist. "Run!" They sprinted toward the maintenance shaft. Footsteps thundered behind them. Dan shoved open the metal panel and helped Elena climb inside. She reached down to help him up, but he pushed her hand away. "Go. Now. I'm right behind you." He slid in and pulled the panel shut. Inside the narrow shaft, their breaths echoed. The intruder reached the panel seconds later and slammed into it. Dan whispered, "Keep crawling. Don't stop." Part 7 Falling Apart. They crawled through the dark until Dan suddenly stopped. The shaft ended, collapsed metal blocking the exit. Elena's voice cracked. "We're trapped." Dan shook his head. "Not yet." He braced both arms against the metal sheet and pushed. Muscles straining. Sweat forming on his forehead. It didn't budge. Elena's breath quickened. Dan tried again, groaning in pain. Nothing. Elena placed her small hands over his. We pushed together. For a moment, he looked at her, not the CEO, not the distant boss, but a woman, scared yet brave. He nodded. They pushed. The metal groaned, bent, snapped open. They tumbled out into the stairwell. But the moment they stood, the intruder burst through the door at the other end. Part 8 The Confrontation. He was massive. Scarred. Covered in tattoos. And furious. "Daniel Hale." He growled. "You ruined my life." Dan stepped in front of Elena. "You ruined your own life, Marlo." The intruder raised the crowbar. Dan didn't move. Elena grabbed Dan's arm, terrified. Marlo snarled. "Move. I'm not here for you, princess." Elena stiffened. Dan clenched his fists. "You won't touch her." Marlo lunged. Dan shoved Elena aside and blocked the swing with his arm. Pain rippled through him, but he held on, grappling with Marlo, using every bit of strength left. It wasn't enough. Marlo slammed him into the railing. Elena screamed. Dan collapsed to his knees. Marlowe lifted the crowbar again. When Elena grabbed a fire extinguisher off the wall. Wham! She hit Marlowe in the back of the head. He stumbled. Dan threw a final punch. Marlowe fell unconscious. Part 9 Aftermath. Security finally stormed the stairwell minutes later. Elena sat beside Dan, pressing a cloth to his bleeding arm. "You saved my life," she whispered. Dan shrugged lightly. "You saved mine too." She smiled softly. "You shouldn't be a janitor." Dan blinked. Elena continued, "Starting tomorrow, if you want, you'll work as our safety supervisor. Better pay. Better hours. Benefits for you and your daughter." Dan stared at her, speechless. "Why?" Elena breathed out. "Because anyone willing to risk their life for someone else, deserves a chance to build a better one." Part 10 A New Beginning. The next morning, Dan limped toward the parking lot, exhausted but alive. Elena stood there with 2 coffees. One for him. One for herself. Her voice was gentle. "I'd like to meet your daughter someday." Dan smiled, really smiled. "She'd like that." Elena looked at him carefully. "Dan." "Yes, ma'am. Next time it's midnight." Her lips curved faintly. "You don't have to save me. You can just knock." Dan chuckled. "No promises, ma'am." And together, they walked toward a future neither of them had expected, but both were grateful.